Watch me build a $20,000, 300-pound table 3 months postpartum. Yes. This is my baby, and this is how I built this table. These are the slabs that my client had picked. They were 14 foot tall, about 2 3/4 inches thick. And here I am cutting the edge to make a straight edge, and we're keeping the live edge in the inside. And what I got to do now is flatten out the wood. So that's taking out any inconsistencies, and now I am cutting down to size so that way it'll fit inside of my mold. And I just made this out of 2x4s. So many people ask me, like, what do you make your frames out of? How do you make your molds? 1x2s, MDF, 2x4s. This is the color they chose. I did end up using a powder and a liquid dye, and that adds a bunch of depth, and you'll see in the end product. So here's the pours. These are so satisfying to me. Black walnut wood with this black mica powder and then that black opaque dye. It just ended up being so pretty and pulling out all the dark colors. All right, you're gonna pop all your bubbles, wait 72 hours, and then demold. I think I ended up waiting about 5 days. You hold down your slabs so they don't float, and you do this anything that touches, you know, the pour, because I over poured because there's going to be shrinkage. You go ahead and line with tuck tape or shipping tape. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and demold this table. The sounds of when you're like ripping the table off of the bottom is just so satisfying. All right, so this thing is heavy as hell, and yes, 3 months postpartum. This was in January, so this is a throwback. Y'all probably saw this build. I called it the Black Onyx. She's gorgeous. She was gorgeous. All right, so now it's time to flatten out the table and get out any inconsistencies. This slab flattening jig is from Europe. It is the TOTS, T-O-T-S, Take 1 2. I don't really have a lot of room for this, so I don't bust it out often, but it is amazing. I'm pretty sure they now have a base out of Canada, so if you're in the US like me, then you have that option. Otherwise, I use the Stone Coat countertops. It's linked in my Amazon shop. So here's just some mineral spirits. I am wiping off all the dust, and I'm gonna get the legs on. These things are so heavy, so heavy. This is just finding the placement, getting the okay. Her husband was rather tall, so I needed to make sure they had enough knee room, but also that bar goes on the bottom, so I didn't really have too many options. I add C-channels in the bottom to prevent any like warping and cupping. Okay, so this is what I'm taking out. I gave it about an extra 1/5 of an inch, 1/4 inch on the outside of the C-channels, and that's going to allow flex in the wood and stuff. So yeah, we will get these in there. I am taking so that way this will sit flush. This is going to sit right in there. I will clean up these lines so that way they look really good with the chisel. But right now, we're just taking out the bulk of this, okay? We're gonna take it down 5 millimeters, taking it down that much, which is that much. So, as you can see, we got like a little bit more to go. But that's the thickness of this. So, we're taking the thickness of this, and that's this. Okay? So I'm just going to get this out. So I'm taking the bulk of it out with my plunge router, and here I like to use a drill bit so that way when I remove the C-channel, I know where center is and I can drill my holes. So that's a little pro tip for you. All right, so I am adding threaded inserts in here, and I am going to leave room for flex, okay? I highly recommend that. You don't want this thing cracking. different humidities and temperatures and stuff like that, it really affects the wood and the resin like differently. So you want them to work together the best they can. All right, so here I'm getting my threaded inserts in, and my C channel fits perfectly. Look at that gorgeousness. All right, so you don't want to tighten things down too far. Look at that. All right, so they wanted a reverse chamfered edge, and that's what we did on the bottom. That thing turned out so sexy. We're using Rubio Monocoat for the finish, and I did do that diamond coat, the ceramic coating on the top. That thing was everything. Like, they did mess up, though. They ended up having a card party. Like, it takes 30 days for it to cure, and they had a playing card party the first weekend they had the table. So I had to do that, and then they had to be careful for the first 30 days. All right, so these are for the legs. And before I got the drill stop, I use painter's tape. So you don't need all them fancy tools and stuff. I promise you don't. All right, so I'm showing my bonus son and kind of counting on him to help me flip this thing over after it's got its finish. Just because if I'm doing it by myself, I'm aggressive and rough, and I will have to sand it again, and I don't want to. All right, I'm getting the finish on the top, and I am totally digging the way this turned out. This thing is so sexy. Do you like it? Gorgeous. And here is the finished piece. What do you think? This is where I started. This is where my passion lies. I love creating and giving new life to pieces of wood that would otherwise be trash.